This episode of Nurturing Well-Being with Kurt Kelly is going to take a little bit different tack. We have invited the CEO and president of TaxWatch, Dominic Calabro. Dominic is well known as a man that cares deeply about the state of Florida, influences policy, but he is considered the watchdog for the taxpayers. And he understands that we need to have good resources provided for those that are providing services for children and families. So I think you're going to enjoy this interview, and I want you to listen to his heart, his concern and compassion for both the state, our nation, but also the children we serve as we continue to work together, nurturing well-being. One of the things I've wanted to do on Nurturing Well-Being is, while a lot of times we bring on different folks around the child welfare world, we also live in a greater world. And that greater world requires for us, as we're interfacing with the business community, but we're also interfacing with government, is to make sure that we're highly accountable in everything that we do. And so it's always a pleasure for me to be a part of and working with TaxWatch and the great folks that they have there. Dominic, welcome. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you, Kurt.
I know you have just finished. You had a busy and quite frankly, very productive session from a TaxWatch perspective. I know I was just at your spring conference. And there was a buzz in the air about the great things that you were able to do and have such leaders that were there with you. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you felt the state did right this year and some of the things you were able to accomplish this year.
Well, thank you, Kurt. I first want to thank you as not only a dear friend, but also a great friend to the taxpayers for your service as a former state legislator, but your continued service as the leader, president, CEO of the Coalition of Children here in Florida. The community-based care, which is unique in our country, one of the best. No matter what you do, you're never going to bat 1,000, but what you do is immeasurably beneficial to all the taxpayers, to all the businesses throughout our state, because you're helping to care for these kids and families that would otherwise be neglected or go into a life of undesirable consequences, to put it mildly. So you are given an almost insurmountable challenge. You have been steadfast, and I really want to thank you.
That's high praise, and I thank you for it. And I'll give you your 45 cents after
No. That a cup of coffee. That
doesn't cover anything. Yeah,
exactly. Give you a cup of coffee. Yeah, but I think we had a really great session. Yes, I think, as the session started out, we thought, oh my gosh, with the pandemic, we're going to be $3 to $4 billion in the hole at the start, and it's amazing what 10 to 15 billion dollars brought to us. Compliments of Uncle Joe.
Exactly.
President Joe Biden and the Congress was able to provide to help not only lighten the load, but really fill a lot of opportunities. So the state budget busted over $100 billion, $101.5 billion. Even with the governor's vetoes, it was about $1.5 billion. But most of that was other different kind of funds. Didn't really affect the general appropriations for that coming year. About 50 some odd million. He did tag a lot of the TaxWatch suggested items. But we really had a really, really productive session. And the budget grew by $9.2 billion. But what we saw here was, first and foremost, the transition from this incredible health pandemic, which was an absolute nightmarish economic pandemic as well, must have created havoc of all your listeners out there, of all the people of Florida, but especially those families and children that are so much ordinarily under extraordinary challenges and risks. I think this session was a very, very good one. So the first thing we did was, our first accomplishment was helping the governor and the legislative leaders. And also I want to compliment CFO Jimmy Petronas, who really led on the COVID-19 limited liability shield. TaxWatch weighed in on that, helped to do an economic analysis that showed that if we didn't act on it, it would have cost the state 356,000 jobs at a cost of about $28 billion to the economy. So that helped push it over, as well as we worked with Mason-Dixon to kind of get a sense of the public pulse, and 72% of the public supported it across Democrats, Republicans alike, and 74% those supported for healthcare workers. So that was a really, really big one. There's so many other things that were important there. I think we learned through this pandemic the value in our healthcare systems, a value in almost everything from Zoom and beyond, how telehealth is so critically important.
Yes.
Also for mental health. And it's really important to be able to reach out to touch
in
people.
our arena as well. Very important.
Very
yes.
much in child care and social services. So TaxWatch led in that in 2014, helped do reports on that, helped get that passed. So anyway, that was one, and then some other areas in tax and finance. The remote sales tax, that was so important. TaxWatch been pushing that, seemed like uphill for over 20 years. And finally
I ran that bill. Did you remember that?
That's right. And it was...
In 2009, I ran that
Absolutely.
bill, and it just, everybody says the optics are just too much, Kurt. We can't take it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but there's a fairness here. Our local folks are getting ripped off, and we've got external companies out here, big corporations, getting a windfall, getting a 6 and 7% discount, not having to pay the sales tax.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, our citizens are required to pay it, and they don't even know they're breaking the law.
Exactly. They were tax cheats, and most of them are inadvertent tax cheats. So what happened is once the U.S. Supreme Court overruled a previous Supreme Court decision that was rendered in 1992, it was called Wayfair versus South Dakota. It basically said, hey, take the chains off. It's now time, and allowed states to participate and collect. So all of a sudden now, what's happening is your families, many of your listeners, many those you serve that bought things over the internet or mail order, all of a sudden now they could pay a 50% penalty. In fact, it was a lawmaker himself that bought something from another country, and he got a bill for $17,000. It was a 50% penalty, okay? Because that's what the law says. If you don't pay it, there's up to 50% penalty plus interest. So all of a sudden, what TaxWatch did, that was from Representative Clemens who pointed that out, and we worked with him. So we actually had the Taxpayer Penalty Relief Act, if you will. So what this did is shift the burden simply from the user, the Florida-based user, to a large out-of-state remote seller. So it's her or his responsibility to collect and remit the tax. The burden falls on them, not on the Florida consumer. So it was a big win. It's over $1 billion. They're estimating 1.3 billion. I believe it's going to be higher for a lot of reasons. By the third year, I think we're looking at 2.5 to 3 billion per year. So the first thing that did, and I'll wrap this up from here, is the first thing it did is it allowed businesses, even nonprofits, to avoid a 700% increase in the unemployment tax insurance.
Correct.
The second thing is it allows us to bring down from 5.5% to 2% the sales and use tax on commercial rents, which Florida's the only state in the nation that has it. So really big win. I call it a grand slam, and really happy that you and others on the TaxWatch board and our staff helped bring that to victory.
The one minor mistake I made was I didn't ask to get a little bit of that piece for child welfare. I could have said just whatever that pays. I just need 5%. That would. Anyhow, listen. That was the right thing to do, and it's, by the way, it's an honorable and ethical thing to do. And I think that that just bespeaks to the character of TaxWatch. You know, one of the things you guys are probably best known for is the turkey list that comes out. And every year, no matter what happens, you're going to have somebody come and say, why am I on the turkey list? Yeah. It's not about whether you agree that's a laudable thing that's being put forth. It's did they go through the right process?
Vetting is the vetting.
Just the vetting process, and that everyone has to go through. And did somebody bypass that vetting process? Yeah. And if they did, then they make your list. Right. And at that point in time, the governor has an option of saying, well, because it didn't go through the right thing, I'm going to veto it. Yeah. Sometimes he'll say, it was probably worthwhile to go ahead and have this on there. But I know you have examples after examples. I know that's probably, you get a little gray in the beard because of that, brother.
But a little bit, Curtis. We've had sitting chairman, a couple of really big ones. So it's our own board members and the like. But it's about integrity. It's about the integrity of the institution, but also the integrity of the process. And even though legislators don't like it, they begrudgingly have a lot of respect. Senate President-designate Kathleen Pasadamo, who I think is a phenomenal public servant and leader.
Me too.
I think she's going to do a great job. Wilton Simpson, our current Senate president.
Yes.
She herself said, this is really important. It's about doing the right thing for the right reasons, and also keeping the system in check and balance. And we're all trying to build a better Florida. We have our role to do it. You have your role. Legislators have theirs. And so it's become kind of an indispensable institution in that regard, as long as we maintain that proficiency, that dedication to principles, good empirical evidence, and doing what's best for the people of Florida, and just use the right kind of influence that builds stronger, better communities. The thing I mentioned also at our spring board meeting, again, thank you for being such an integral part of the TaxWatch board, is that TaxWatch is looking to not yell at each other. We're not partisan. We're not saying, you ignorant jerk. We just say, hey, look, what can we do to build a stronger Florida, stronger community, stronger social service system, stronger families? And we have differences, but we can overcome them. But it's hard to do that when you keep nagging at other people and throwing red meat this way or that way. It's all about building a stronger foundation for America. And I think the most important thing is, at this time of divisiveness, we can disagree, but we should not be disagreeable. You don't have to be disrespectful.
And that's the thing. You're bipartisan. It may be multiply partisan because there are some other folks, but you're bipartisan in your approach, but you're political enough to say this is the right thing to do, and therefore you have
principled. I think is the word. It's really principled and using good evidence. The foundation of Florida TaxWatch is really premised upon the founding documents of our country, from the Declaration of Independence to the Constitution, the amendments, but also the Federalist Papers. It kind of laid out that this is a constitutional democratic republic. It's the rule of law, not the rule of men and women. It's not the whims of individuals. It doesn't matter. I mean, of course it does matter who our president is, who our speaker, but ultimately they serve us.
Right.
They serve the community. And it's kind of the role of TaxWatch, unlike some other organizations that are designed to lobby, and ours is not. We have to have access to power, but it's even more fundamental. What's the legitimacy of their use of that power for the good of the kids, the good of the families, with the rightful and respectful roles that the state can and should play, while families play the most important role, and while even communities, philanthropic organizations, local governments, and businesses have an important role to making and caring for and feeding and nurturing their families. So I love the title, Nurturing Well-Being with Kurt Kelly. It's always a great pleasure.
When I first came here to the coalition and I began to looking at the funding aspect, our members who have an allocation that comes in had not received any new recurring revenue. That means basically they're at zero-based budgeting and at the mercy of an economy to even be less than that. Mm-hmm. And so we were in real trouble in a lot of respects. I came to your organization and said, look, I want to present the facts, but I would like for you to do an evaluation independently. I mean, I can get out and say what I think, but I'd like you to do an independent evaluation. You came back and said, yeah, you're probably $100 to $140 million underfunded. Yeah. And it gave me great impetus to be able to go to the legislature and say, an independent organization has said this. And when they said TaxWatch, you people would say, okay. So there was validation.
Yeah, we're not these liberal, want to spend money we don't have kind of organizations.
We don't care. I need more money. No, it was very important. But, I didn't really get a lot of support. But even just a couple of years ago, a secretary came before the legislature using that study to say, here's what we've had. I'm still waiting on some of those dollars to come in, but we think that those are very valuable. And see, so it's not just that you're saying don't spend money ever. What you're saying is you're going to spend money, spend it in the right place, do it the right way.
Really, the term is I think what our House and Senate appropriations members in the House and Senate try to do, and you mentioned some of the leaders that have come before your program, and that is stewardship. We're trying to promote good public stewardship, good fiscal stewardship, trying to get good outcomes for the kids and families in a way that helps them become productive citizens and then contribute back rather than be a ward of the state, rather than be dependent on continuing financial support and the feed and caring by the state. When I say the state, I mean government,
right.
State and local government. It's increasing what can they do to become productive citizens, get good paying jobs, careers, and then give back by paying taxes and more than paying taxes, being engaged citizens and helping those less fortunate themselves. So the cycle continues. It's a cycle of growth. It's a cycle of generative well-being. It's kind of like the first sign of civilization was when an older man planted a tree that he would never be able to benefit by, but someone else would. You know, that's the notion
of that.
We're building a stronger community, not always for ourselves, but for our kids or grandkids or just our neighbors' kids. And I think that's really something that is unique to Americana, and we must never lose it. And the only way not to lose it is to be vigilant, but to act with that vigilance, to be good stewards and promote that good stewardship and the care and nurturing of our families and communities, using tax dollars wisely, impactfully. So I think I'd like to go back at that again, use that report, even if we don't get engaged again, but just the fact that we have that and share that information. They got to see it all the time. And out of sight, out of mind, I just think it's like everything else, it's promotion. You were talking about that a little earlier. It's a big part of this is getting your word out there in a way that resonates, with the elected officials and their constituents. Because I think the cost of not funding the community-based care agencies properly is going to be dismal. You're going to see more of those kind of sad and ridiculous, dangerous effects in communities, kids that are out of control, families that have nowhere else to go, and they do nothing but harm to people and property, to businesses, to communities.
And themselves.
To themselves and to others. You can't give up on the kids. I mean, you just can't.
So as you were saying this, and I was thinking that preamble of the Constitution finishes this one part where it says, and securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And I think that's a charge that we have. That blessing of liberty is being able to have property and life and experience the greatness of what it means to live in this society. Yeah. And so that's part of our charge. But one of the ways that we do this, and it's an area that's sort of under attack right now, and that is getting and holding on to great employees. And so the turnover rate that is really affecting, that's going to be an area the coalition's coming. I was talking to Senator Bean yesterday, Senator Broder, Representative Roach, others that have mentioned to me and to other members of our organization that we need to get our arms around that. So that's going to be a big area.
Yeah.
But it's not just our area. It's with the department, and it's anyone that's quite frankly in this social service area, because we're used to paying probably under $15 an hour to people that start. We have no choice anymore, and things are going to pop up in here, and we're going to have to compete with Chipotle and all these other places that are paying more than we pay, and they don't have the stress level. So that's an area that you and I are going to have a deeper conversation.
I think this is something that TaxWatch does well with its calculus is, what is the cost of not paying them properly?
That's right.
Okay?
Good way.
And I think you begin to see it through dysfunctions in families and communities. You see a level of dysfunctions with crime. You see a level of a breakup of kids that are on the streets. You see more trafficking, sex trafficking and the like. This is just unacceptable. And I'm not saying it's a direct correlation one-to-one, but clearly paying people a sufficient level to be productive, to have proficient in their job, and to be reasonably satisfied that they're doing a good job, okay? So they have a sense of hope. You know, the kids and the families can't have a sense of hope if the provider, the folks taking care of them, don't have hope. You know, you can't give somebody something you yourself don't already have, okay? You can't love somebody if you don't have God's love in your heart itself. So the same thing is true in the care and nurturing of our kids and families and communities. And I think while we're seeing that problem of wage challenges, okay, this is a phenomenon across the board. And as the pandemic begins to level out, hopefully we'll see some leveling of that. But we're already way behind. There's no question. I mean, if we advance it together with better standards of accountable performance, so it's not just paying more money, it's paying more money, but to ensure that with that investment will come better supervision, better proficiency, more accountable results and performance that reduces other costs and pain and suffering for kids, their families, the communities in which they live.
You know, as I'm talking with you here, and I hear I'm glad people get to hear your heart on this, because you're purpose driven, you principled, purpose, And I can tell you, Dominic, that based upon my experience with you over the many years that I've known you, that's your reputation here. The Florida taxpayers, and quite frankly, those that allocate the resources, our leaders, have had no greater friend. You've been a great champion. Your organization is as respected as anybody in the nation around this. And we're very blessed here in Florida to have an organization. It's not a bomb thrower. You come out and you do things in a very reasonable, thoughtful way. And I've always been honored. I was talking to a business guy that is thinking about joining TaxWatch, and he asked me, and I said, well, listen, I believe in, Chamber does their piece, and they do a great job, and AIF does their part, and Retail Federation does their area. But I believe that TaxWatch, in a greater philosophical perspective, has all of those involved. That's why all those organizations are kind of part of yours anyhow. They all kind of join together. And I think that you do a marvelous job for the citizenry. But as a former legislator, I valued your opinion. Even when I didn't like you call one of my projects a turkey. But you know what? I valued your opinion, and therefore I reached out for it. So with that, my friend, you're a blessing to Florida. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you, we're nurturing well-being. We're nurturing children and families, but we're actually nurturing a great state. Yeah. And I love being a part of what you're doing.
It's a sunshine state, so let's make sure we act that way.
Yeah, let's keep it all in the sunshine.
Keep it all open and generative. And that, as the saying goes, that we have inherited some blessings, but we built upon it. We made it better than what we inherited. And I think that's what our Creator expects of us. But it's also the notion of what America is really built upon. And so Florida TaxWatch, working with Coalition for Florida's Children and others, is really about how do we build stronger systems of caring for our families and kids. The budgets in dollars, it's public policy with money attached to it to ensure that it can be executed, implemented wisely, carefully, and that the impact is seen through healthier communities, healthier families, more prosperous youth that have the opportunities to build their careers and give back to the community. And that's really what it's all about. And I'm so blessed and honored to do that but again, I couldn't do it alone. Not only just with our very professional staff, and they're incredible, but also our dedicated volunteers and leaders, trustees like yourself and others, but also great legislators. You mentioned a few really good ones just a few moments ago, Senators Broder and Bean and Representative Roach, among so many others. I mean, our Appropriations Chair in the Senate, Kelly Stargill.
She's awesome.
She's just awesome. Friend. She was, again, she's over at the TaxWatch meeting.
She sat behind me in the legislature. I always mess with her.
She's awesome. And so we have so many. And Governor Ron DeSantis has done a really, really tremendous job. And I think our cabinet's also really, really awesome. Attorney General. And so I think what's really important here is that we can work together, and you're either part of the solution. At the end of the day, you're either part of the solution or part of the problem. Right. So I ask and invite everyone to be part of the solution. Stop backbiting and just pitch in. What can we do to help build a stronger, better, more effective, more efficient, and better community that we'll be proud of and that will serve us well for some time to come?
Well, you're a blessing. Thank you for what you do for the state of Florida. Thank you for what you do for our organization and for the children and family. And we'll continue this conversation and be working together for this session that comes up here not too long from now.
Wow, it's January before you know it.
Yeah, you bet.
Amazing.
Yeah, actually, Senator Bean yesterday says it's September 20th is the first committee hearing.
Oh, gosh.
Here we are, right on a tail. But thank you again. God bless you, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.
Thank you very much, Kurt.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this interview. I enjoyed it. I love getting to sit there and talk with folks from all different walks of life and come into the studio and bring their perspective on how we can work together to make our industry of taking care of children and families even stronger. We're going to continue to work together as we nurture well-being.